Hello and welcome to the fourth Grab the Mic Live. I'm Victoria Turnbull and I'm the founder of Manc Media, which is a social enterprise that is a podcast production company and a social enterprise. I've just said that, haven't I? What I meant to say was a profit for purpose podcast production company, all the P's, and we offer training as well too. And the idea behind Grab the Mic is that I want to show you all the fantastic things that not-for-profits are doing with audio and podcasts to inspire you to grab the mic or tickle up your existing podcast if you so have one. So every month or so I'll invite a buddy of mine, someone who's doing great things with podcasting in the not-for-profit world. So I'm very happy to have with me this afternoon or this lunchtime, Damian Carr from the Manc Spirit charity, founder of the Manc Spirit charity. And
co-founder.
Sorry.
You'll have Paul shouting at me.
Oh, yeah, we were going to have Paul today as well, but he has literally had to be swept away for something else. So, but more than happy just to have you, Damian, you know.
Thank you.
And also, so you are the co-founder of the Manc Spirit charity, but also thus the host and co-founder of That Great Manc Pod as well. So thank you very much for joining me on this lovely Tuesday. So let's start off right at the beginning, shall we? It's a natural place to start. What is the Manc Spirit charity?
Right. The Manc Spirit charity, me and Paul got together a few years ago. Paul's got a background in Paul Ludden, who's the founder and runner. Manc Made, so he supports creative people, projects, organisations across Greater Manchester anyway. Yeah. So he's got background in sales, business, that kind of stuff. And I've worked in the charity sector forever. I'm an old man now, as Vic was pointing out earlier before we come live.
It wasn't that harsh.
So I've worked in the charity sector a long time, and it was natural. We support other organisations, but there was a real need across Greater Manchester to provide a support charity for creatives, for mental health, positive mental health, but most of all for grassroots organisations out there. Now, there is organisations in place, but we wanted to do something a bit more lively. And, well, basically me and Paul like to go and prove a point as well. So we thought the best way of showing others how to be collaborative, how to be supportive, and how to, just get out there and do stuff the Manc way was to actually go and do it ourselves. So that's how the Manc Spirit charity came about.
So for people who don't know what the Manc way is, what is the Manc way?
We like to describe it as unapologetic, doing the right thing and doing it with a bit of swagger. But it's just about being a bit cheeky, working together, but family values, looking out for each other. What I always say, if there's any hassle going on within Greater Manchester, if there's anything, I've got a long time, years and years and years of doing anti-racism work and stuff like that. Bottom line is, not on my patch, mate. You know what I mean? And that's what it's about. We look after each other in Greater Manchester, and when there's stuff going on, we rally together and we work together and we get it sorted. We don't need politicians. We don't need permission. We just go and get it done.
That Manc swagger is so alive and well within the Manc Spirit charity. It's unbelievable. So that Manc swagger, that we work together, that family, that collaboration, that runs all the way through your podcast, That Great Manc Pod. So it's basically the Manc Spirit charity funneled into some audio deliciousness for your ears, isn't it?
Yeah, it started off separate, actually.
Did it?
Yeah, I mean, Paul had already been doing the Manc Made podcast, which was actors, quite high-profile people on the Manc Made pod, and then he developed that into the podcasts, pod plays, which, if you haven't heard them, go and listen to them. It gives existing and new actors an opportunity and new writers an opportunity. So the pod plays now is thriving. So it was from that we were talking about. Well, my my passion more than anything for giving a voice. Everything we do, everybody in the charity sector is giving a voice to minorities and to people that get forgotten. So one of them, it was a natural thing of, what about the organisations themselves? You know, I know, because I'm also a consultant within the charity sector, so I support lots of different charities, community groups, from start up to like £250,000 bids to whatever. I'm always telling them, work together, collaborate, go after bigger pots of money. Don't chase around after £2,000. Go after, you know, decent amount and get good stuff done. But I know so many groups across Greater Manchester that are doing incredible stuff, but they don't know how to shout about it. You know, and it. So yet again, with our, it seems to be a common thread. I thought, well, I kept telling them to shout about it. So I thought, well, we'll shout about it for you. You know, we'll create the platform. We'll set up this podcast, That Great Manc Pod. And the whole idea of it was fantastic community champions out there. People have got stories to tell that have done great stuff. Organisations, we're not bothered whether they're a local community group or whether they're a housing association. If you're doing great stuff in Greater Manchester, come on and tell us, you know, and let us help you use that as a platform for giving a shout out for the stuff you need. You know, in the last week, I mean, we're running the Our Tameside Festival this week. So thank you for arranging this today, Vic, seeing as you're a Tameside celebrity yourself.
I loved on one of the. I was going to explain that actually, that it's part of the Our Tameside Festival, which is we'll talk about it in a second, but a series of festivals you put on in each of the boroughs of Greater Manchester, which showcase the amazing stuff that's going on in communities in those specific regions. But I loved it how you put that I was Hyde's number one podcaster, which is something that I was going to put on the side of my car. In my van, if I had one.
You're having one of them car stickers on your Cortina.
Hyde, New York, London. So yeah, you're talking about the latest episode then.
Well, the latest in the last week, we are these festivals that we run in each of the boroughs, and we purposefully went out to the boroughs, not Manchester, seeing as me and Paul are both Mancs. I'm from Clayton, he's from Moston. There was too much focus on Manchester. What about the rest of it? We're a Greater Manchester. So we've run these festivals from the Manc Spirit. We're supported by GMCA Culture. So we've done them in Trafford, Wigan, Bury, Stockport, and now we're in Tameside, and we'll be doing Salford in the next couple of months. So that's about going to that area. We're out and about all over, and anyone who's doing good stuff, we want to show them. We want to show videos. We share it on Twitter. Initially, though, the idea was to do loads of live events. So, for instance, get a school to showcase their art in the local coffee shop, or you know, mix it up and make it sort of grassroots. You know, grassroots is key to it. But we literally started this at the April as the pandemic hit. So we, as with everything we did, we wasn't going to be stopped. We had to adapt fast. So everything got put online. We used YouTube. We looked at loads of different ways. Hence why we started using Zoom, and the podcast became more of the Manc Spirit sort of ethos, because it's a great way for us to reach people. We record them on Zoom. We're not overly techy, you know, probably not the best quality. They could probably tell us off some of the stuff that we actually do. But we did literally started with one of them headset and a computer and a Zoom for £145 a year. That was it. That's all we'd started with. Now, obviously, we've got the mics and the boom arms and these, but we've still not spent a lot of money. But it's been fantastic using it to get out and meet people, share their stories. And sorry, Vic, I've gone off on a mad tangent. The latest one, we've done 2 this week. One with the Anthony Seddon Fund, which was fantastic, and one with PAC CIC, which was Matt Turnbull.
Should we play a little bit of that one?
Yeah, cool.
Let me just line you up. So this is This is Mark Turton from the latest episode that you can listen to now on all great podcast players.
No, and it's a difficult one because, you know, through history, youth has been seen as a nuisance. It's quite easy to blame things on young people, but at the end of the day, they're children. The children, you see them hanging around on the streets. They might look scary as anything in the, you know, in the hoodies or whatever, you know, hanging around in groups. But when you get to them, that individual on their own, and you speak to them, you see how vulnerable they are.
But it's easy for certain elements in the community to just blame them for everything.
Yeah, and that, you know, I don't want to really get into too much of it, but you have got the local businesses who can contribute to that as well, because they can be blaming the young people, and you have got it, because there's a lot of youth provision closed down and gone. And people don't realise what impact that has on young people.
So just a clip there that was Mark Turton from, he's running a CIC up around here, up Attlesey, isn't he?
No, he's actually, it's the whole of Tameside. So they do outreach. So they go out onto the estates, Drelsden, Ardenshire, places like that, actually talking to the young people, you know, getting them involved in positive activity. But that particular thing, and you can hear it, and I'll be honest, you can hear it in Mark's voice there. One of our main themes with the charity is about mental health and supporting people that are struggling. And Mark is putting so much into that organisation, and he's got a creative club based in Hattersley. There's around 16 to 20 young people engaging with this now. And those of us that know the area, there's nothing in Hattersley. There's nothing to support the kids up there. And they weren't causing major trouble. They were just hanging around near McDonald's. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything major. Now they're making films, doing music. They're involved in all this stuff. And Mark, like the rest of us, it's become really hard recently your sponsors have gone, your donations have dropped because of the situation. We understand that. And he's struggling to get the funding in to keep this running. Now, we'll do everything we can to support Mark to keep that project going. You know, and again, that's what we say, the incredible way to use a podcast, because you never know who's listening. You never know who you're reaching. You link it in with your other social media, like this is out on LinkedIn. You know, we'll send stuff out on Twitter following this. I call it a spider's web. The more you send the stuff out there, the more chance. And again, it's a hope, but we are in the charity sector. A lot of it's done on hope.
Yeah.
But it's the collaboration. You know what we're trying to do. You're working with us now. Mike Media's helping Mark reach out to even bigger area to.
It's like Inception, isn't it? I'm showcasing your podcast. You're showcasing their thingy. And then it's that ripple effect, isn't it, as well?
Incredible. Pay it forward, mate. You know, that's what it's all about. You know, you can't just say you're doing good things. You got to do it. Walk the walk, you know. And if anyone's listening to this, and I know this is going out on LinkedIn, and I find LinkedIn a soulless place sometimes, prove me wrong. You know, reach out to Mark at PAC CIC. They only need 12 grand initially to get through the next 6 months. Surely there's the business that can reach out and sponsor them for a bit, or help us do it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, great. That's the mission set then, isn't it, for Mark? What I really enjoy about the Great Manc Pod is that you're not reinventing the wheel with it. So you've got existing events going on. The guests that you get involved are involved with those events and that festival you've got going on. You've got existing funding for it. It's not rocket science, is it?
Well, it's a mix. We have got GMCA supports us for the festivals. So yes, you know, when we do the festival specific podcasts, that's included in that funding. But we have also done spin-offs. And if you're running a charity or you're running a CIC or anything social enterprise where you've asked for funding, number one, you've got to show your funders what you're doing, right? So you get they monitor your social media and they listen to what you're saying, right? So it's great for us. So anyone that funds us, we tag them in, we put it on social media, and they can listen to the podcast. But they don't need to audit me or check me. It's already out there,
Yeah.
you know. But it was like during lockdown, got a couple of grand off Carling, the Carling Fund, and that was we were.
You got the Carling the beer.
Carling the beer. We'll take money off anyone, but we're not bothered. No, what that was, we know a lot of creatives, established creative musicians, artists, theatre, poets. They're the people that do our sessions for us when we do the work in communities, and they were all struggling. And your open mic nights and things like that, they weren't expanding their work. They didn't have the opportunity. So I spoke to a few, and they were saying, "Oh, I'm just not writing anymore, or I'm not playing anymore." Or so we got a couple of grand off Carling, and we did open mic on our podcast. And every one of those creatives that got involved in that, and if you go back and listen, there's some fantastic people on there, and I'm sure some will be massive stars, and we'll forget who we was eventually.
They're called the Carling sessions, aren't they? Very creatively named as well, and that's also putting that fund front and centre.
Absolutely, but it's positive. I mean, other people would say to us, "Oh, you shouldn't be taking money off a beer brand. That doesn't help mental health." People going out to open mic nights and entertainment does help the mental health. You know, it gives them a break. And that's what we were doing. We were giving the artists an opportunity to refresh what they were doing, and a different way and a new format. Me and Paul had private sort of, just me and him, with fantastic musicians singing songs for us, which is great. But it was, we've had feedback. There was somebody in New York who's from Manchester originally.
Oh, wow.
And he said it was like being sat back in the pub listening to the conversation and the music. So it was helping him stuck in lockdown in New York. You know, you don't know who you're going to reach on these podcasts. So what I'd always say is say what you need, say what you want. So Anti-Sedum Fund needs volunteers. If there's anybody in the Ashton area, fantastic organisation, they're crying out for volunteers. Please go and volunteer for them. PAC needs some help. Anyone want to do a fundraiser for him? I'm sure Mark would love that. But it's helping. You know, there's people stuck all over the world that are still listening to this because they miss Manchester.
And also people that can take inspiration from the amazing community groups that you're showcasing as well.
Well, the other thing, a lot of people, you know, you'll speak to people and say, I say this every mental health day and mental health week. Everyone's coming out on Twitter going, talk if you're struggling, right? But where is there to go? You know, it's all right talking about it. What's the next step? Now, we all put the posts out, we put the Samaritan's number and everything else. What we're showing is we're hoping that somebody will listen to this and go, do you know what? I didn't even know that existed down the road. Or I've got a kid in Attersley here that's absolutely incredibly talented artist. I didn't know that was down the street. And that's what it's all about. It's giving people the opportunity to hear about what's going on in our Greater Manchester, because there is good stuff. It's a terrible time at the moment, but there's fantastic people.
And I was saying this to someone the other day as well. Sometimes we work, especially now, working from home, a lot of us, we work in our silos, and it's we not much like we used to get the opportunity to see what's beyond either our little blinkers that we've got on or what's happening in other boroughs in Greater Manchester. So it's providing a great signposting service as well. That's such a dry way of putting it. It's a great signposting service. I want to play. Go on, sorry.
So it's also looking after each other, because people sort of forget, all us that are involved and out there doing whatever we can to help other people have struggled too. You know, I'm the first one to admit, during lockdown, I nearly went under a few times, because you're trying so hard to help other people because you have that awareness. I mean, it's, you know, and like you say, you get stuck in silo. I was stuck at home all the time and I got used to it. You know, and it's only recently I've started getting out and about again and going to events and things like that. But I've ended up on antidepressants recently, but it was the best thing I ever did. You know what I mean? Because it's given me that buffer now to start going out again and doing more and getting back into being who I am. You know what I mean? And
it's also having honest conversations like these as well. It's conversations that aren't sugar-coated, that aren't, oh my God, look how amazing we are, look at our amazing outcomes. It's it's like the clip we just played saying, these are kids, these are just children, businesses should take notice. We need to be having more honest conversations and less the sugar-coated stuff, doesn't it, in this sector?
Yeah, people are scared of what to say. It's the Manc Spirit way. We're not scared. Too old to be scared anymore.
I get that from the years of knowing you both. I think it's so easy as well, as a charity or as a CIC or as a not-for-profit, thinking about starting a podcast, that you want to tell everyone how good you are, but you can tell people how good you are by not being that direct, if you know what I mean, like you guys are.
Just do it. I've always said, what biggest quote that has always stuck with me through my whole life is be the change. It's all right saying about it and celebrating it, but get out and do it. That's the best example. And by doing these conversations and inviting other people and working with them, and we building up an incredible network of fantastic people. So there's number one. What more could you want? People say to me, you've got an agenda. It can get very silo mentality you mentioned earlier. Charity sector is one of the worst places for these are my people, this is my project. What are you up to? You've got an agenda, Damian. Yeah, of course I've got an agenda. I'm trying to do good stuff. We need to raise funds for the charity to do the work we do. We need to reach out to other areas. Yes, we've got an agenda, of course we have. But why haven't you? There's nothing wrong with that as long as it's a positive one and the intent is right. But yeah, you're dead right. You just saying that keeps me going. The fact that people like you that we respect and love, say, well, you're doing good stuff. You know what I mean? That's what matters, mate, at the end of the day.
On that note, we're going to play another clip. And this is from an episode that you actually suggested that I play. So let me add this to there. And it's, shall I introduce it? Yeah, I'll introduce it. It's from an episode called Humanity back last year. And this is Petra and Sheena, and they are two nurses from the Wigan and Lee NHS Intensive Care Unit. And it's about what really goes on in the ICU, and especially during the pandemic. So let's play that. Oh, is it going to play?
And I know you as a group of people, you wouldn't sort of push this, but I think it's really good for people to know what you actually do within the hospital, because you will get that kind of, oh yeah, they've got it. You're just sat there drinking coffee, switching a few, and I'm sure people think like that.
And I think it's the one-to-one nursing. People don't understand what one-to-one nursing means.
Yeah.
They think, what, you only have one patient, but they forget these patients are the sickest patients in the hospital, and they are literally on, a lot of machines, hooked up onto a lot of machines, and the nurses are experts in what they do, and they basically manage everything for that patient. It is the ventilator, but you need to know what you're doing with the ventilator, and you need to interpret blood gases, what we call blood gases. That's certain. You literally take a blood sample, you interpret it and change the settings on ventilators for that. They're on a lot of drugs that needs maintaining all the time. You can't let it run out because some of it keeps the patient asleep. The patient will literally wake up if you are not on top of everything and you don't have it all running all the time at certain rates. And there's a lot of things going on, It is kidney machines and all sorts of things that's happening. So people don't realize that. But with the dilution of staff, because we weren't enough staff, trained ICU nurses, we did go up to a ratio of 1 to 3. Right. So 1 nurse with 3 ICU patients.
So that was from an episode last year, and Jamie said it was one of your most popular episodes.
Yeah, not only popular, but something that we're most proud of, because that's the epitome of what the Great Manc Pod's all about. We met these nurses, Petro Becca, who's the lady that you could hear there. She's actually originally from South Africa, came over here to work in England. She'd actually worked on ICU, but then gone on to a different role. And as the pandemic happened, they put a request out and she volunteered to go back, which is incredibly brave. Nobody knew what was going on at the time. Nobody knew what risks they were taking. So she went back into ICU. And Sheena, who's also on the podcast, was the matron on the ICU ward in Wigan. But Petro's an amateur photographer, and she got permission to take her camera in, not to take pictures of any patients or anything like that, but to take pictures and document her colleagues and what the fear and the unknown and everything they were doing. And she took all these photos. When we spoke to them both, we could still... It was still fresh for everybody. It was still going on. And we said, no, these have got to be shown. This is social narrative. This is history. There's so much going on here, Petro. You know, you deserve... And they were fantastic pictures. Do you know what I mean? So in our usual way, we like to challenge people. And if someone goes, oh, I've got this here, or I'd like to write something, like, go on then. We'll help you. So... Paul used some of his contacts and we got the Central Library in Manchester because we thought go big or go home, like most of the things we do. So we actually got the exhibition of Petro's photos in the Central Library in Manchester.
Oh, wow.
So she was over because she was saying, oh, I'm going to put them in here or there. I went, nah, we're not having that. It's got to be bigger. Oh, mate, the thing, and they came on the podcast. And the podcast, it was like massive in Hong Kong. It's been our biggest listened to episode. But again, if you're thinking of doing a podcast in Manchester or in the UK, there's a lot of expats. People all over the world are tapping into local podcasts because they want to feel that connection back with home. You know what I mean?
It's amazing. When I released Strong Manchester Women podcast, and a lady who's now a great member of our Mike's Podcast Club community, Lindsay, she shot me a message saying she was listening in Gibraltar because it reminded her of home. And now she's back home. She's making her own podcast, making stitches. But yeah, it's something that you never think about.
Mate, one of the something that's developed in a way is, but we're really proud that we're showcasing Manchester. You know, we know how Greater Manchester is, right? We know that. But a secondary thing or something that's just happened naturally is we're actually promoting that across the world now. Far better than our politicians are. You know what I mean? And again, the more of us do this kind of stuff, the more of the people that give people the opportunity to tell their stories. Yeah. That connection's all over the world, you know. But the nurses, I mean, that podcast, that exhibition now, it's been at the Life Centre in Wigan. It's been over in Belfast as part of a nurses conference. Wow. The NHS have used links to that podcast for some of their conferences. And Petro's won awards, you know, from the NHS. She even got a free camera off a Canon. Oh, wow. Who wanted to celebrate what she'd actually done. And it's not stopping there, you know. So exactly what we set out to do. We give Petro, and I'm not going to say this in a patronising way at all, a normal person, right, who's really a hero for doing what she does. But that person who has just enjoyed taking photos and stuff, look how much that's grown from using technology, using different platforms, and like you say, extending that across the thing. And we're really proud to give her that opportunity. It's not about us. No. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've been mentioned in a lot of these things ever since, which is great for our publicity. It's great for when we put in for funding bids. You've got to do that stuff, you know, unfortunately. But more than anything, it's just organic. It's grown on its own. I
mean, you've got a real cross section of guests on the podcast. You've got youth MPs, activists, founders of charities, staff members on LGBTQ charities. Is there anyone that you'd really love to speak to?
No, because there's nobody. Someone I've not met yet is probably the best answer.
Yeah.
I'm not going after, mate. I'm not interested in what politicians or what gurus, self-made gurus, and all this nonsense. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the fantastic people out there doing incredible things. Now, what I will say, a bloke I've known for a very long time. We tried to get him on the podcast, but he didn't. It was during lockdown, and he didn't have the technology. There's a chap called David Gray who lives in Gorton.
Babylon, David Gray.
No, we always say that. He's far better than him. But he's an incredible bloke that I've known for many, many years, and he does fantastic stuff for communities. He's a Franciscan. He's oh mate, the stories that he can tell, and I've known him a long time. He's a good friend of mine. I'm going to get him on now.
Brilliant.
David Gray, who lives in Gorton, that does fantastic stuff for the community. That'll do me, mate. I don't need any celebrities.
You don't need the great David Gray.
Nah, we don't want that.
No offense to the David Gray.
No, we don't need it for the publicity. I know some people do it to get the publicity for the podcast. Do you know what I mean?
It's a great point. It's a great point. We sometimes as podcasters really think that we need the big boys of the world, but sometimes that can get boring. Real people, real voices, which I mean they are. Don't get me wrong, but can we get people that aren't as high profile? It's good for the numbers, maybe, or is it? Like,
no, I mean they're too polished. They've had too much training. Are you going to get the real story? Are you going to get the scoop? No, you're not. Whereas we have to do a lot of editing with some of our episodes because some of the things that are said, mostly by me and Paul, I will add, you could never put out there. And we don't mind, we don't mind a bit of swearing, don't mind gritty stuff. We talked about some really real issues. I mean, ICU in a COVID, Tony Collier, who's an incredible bloke over in Altrincham that's got terminal cancer, and talks about how he struggles, but incredible campaigner. The work he does for everybody else, fantastic bloke. We've talked about the struggles, Bain Project up in Bury, Proud Trust, it's great. Now, that was key in what we were doing, and we get other organisations saying to us, how do you reach these hard to reach people? It's like, what, Mancs? Right, I've grown up in Manchester. I'm really, really proud of the fact that I've been brought up with every culture, every lifestyle, everything. There are no prejudices, unless you're a Scouser, right? So, mate, I'll hold my hands up.
Easy.
But what I'm saying is, I've had all that art, culture, music, food, been able to go out around the village, I've had so many influences in my life, and one of the things I want to showcase on this podcast is that sort of variety that makes up Greater Manchester, and that's what we're proud of. Yeah. No intolerance, no hate, no. And
it does that. It does that to a T, and you're nailing that. Just a reminder. If you want to ask Damian or me a question, then you can pop it in the comment section, or I think on Twitter you can do it if you just reply to the tweet as well. And over the next 10 minutes, we can answer your questions as well. But you've been doing this for 2 years now, Damian. Have you learned any lessons? What's the biggest lesson you've learned?
Don't set up a charity. It's not good for your bank balance. We're learning all the time. I mean, the interview style, it's really hard. I'll be honest. Me and Paul have got a lot to say. We do have a tendency to talk over each other, or it's very easy for us with two people interviewing that are strong characters. He'll be taking it off on one tangent, and I'll think we've missed the key there and then pulling it back. But I think that's developed with me and Paul. We both realise now that what we're doing, that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's avoiding that leading the conversation too much, and giving people the chance to talk. Especially as you'll know yourself, and you're probably really struggling at the moment, that you have to jump in and put a filler in or keep things going. You know, some of the guests are just difficult to get going, but because of the format we use, because it is like a chat with a couple of mates in the pub, we've never struggled to get people talking. Do you know what I mean? So that interview style definitely still needs work on it. Like you always say, and quite rightly, listen back to your own stuff, listen to other podcasts, and pick up tips. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then just carry on doing what you do anyway.
It's just ignore it. No, I was going to say the style is very conversational. It's very natural. It's your pal having a coffee, or if it's your mates down the pub, and so that relaxes your guests, because as we said before, they're not celebrities, they're not well-known people, they're probably not had media training. Is there any other ways that you prep your guests?
Just telling them that it is that. We actually say to them, don't worry, because you get them back. Have you got a list of pre-questions? Have you got? And he's like, don't worry about it. Number one, we edit it, so don't worry. Say whatever you want. We're not going to drop you in it.
Yeah.
But it's a chat, and you can tell sometimes when they first come on, they're very officious, especially if they work for like an housing association or something.
Yeah.
But after a couple of minutes, they're just talking freely, and you can see that change in them, that just shrugs off and they forget. I think that's probably the best way. They actually forget that it's a podcast. And
that's down to you, Sue.
I wouldn't like to. Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, it is. You're not sat there with your your questions going. And so, tell me, what is your favourite colour? And it's quite natural.
It's not contrived.
No.
And I tell you what, as well, it's a absolute genuine interest by me and Paul in the people that we have on. We really want to hear what they've got to say. We really want to. We're learning all the time. Might be 53 and a pain in the backside, as you once called us, or whatever it was. But we have a genuine interest in people, and I haven't got all the answers, and these people have.
I think I called you a pain in the arse.
I'm not going to say what you called us. You said we're arseholes, but we get things done. That was it.
We're arseholes, but you get things done. But you need to be. Sometimes you have to be an arsehole to get things done, don't you? In this world.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
But that genuinity. That's not a word, is it?
We'll have to invite a word, won't we?
That genuinity, authenticity. That's the word. That authenticity just runs through everything that you guys do. And I think if you tried to be something you wasn't, especially on the podcast, it'd be so obvious.
Mate, don't do badges. I can do all the. I've been a national union official. I've done all that stuff. Been there, seen it, done it. If you want me to be a full-on negotiator and go official and put a suit on, I can do it, right? But it's not me, and it's not Paul. I don't need the badge. I don't call myself CEO of the charity. I don't need to. The charity's not about me and Paul. It's about what we can do.
Yeah.
And I don't need to wear badges. I'm not looking for an MBE. I couldn't give a toss. You know what I mean? If we can look back, it's about legacy. I've got kids. Paul's got kids. We've all got family. We want other people to be treated that way. We want people to be treated with respect. And if they're struggling, there's someone out there that will step up and help them. Do you know what I mean? So it's looking back. If we can. It's an honour as well, and I say this a lot. I mean, I write a lot of funding bids and support of the charities. A lot of them, I couldn't possibly reach their beneficiaries. So, for instance, a South Asian women's group that helps them out of domestic violence and honour killings, all sorts of really heavy stuff. I write their funding bids for them. But I couldn't help those ladies. I haven't got the cultural knowledge. I haven't got the language. I haven't got the access, and I've not been through it. I haven't got the lived experience. So if I went out there, I'd feel fake. But I can support that organisation by helping them with writing the funding base to do the fantastic work that they do. And that's exactly what the Great Manc Pod is. It's my way and Paul's way of reaching people by giving those other organisations and people a platform that we could never possibly reach.
Fabulous. The scrap man's coming round. Can you hear him?
It's usually your cat that photobombs you.
No, it's the scrap man asking for any old iron. It's very northern Grab the Mic Live today. So what's next then for the podcast?
Just keep doing what we're doing. We've got, in fact, we've got 3 more recordings this week, so we're busy. Not necessarily Tameside ones. They might be, they might not be. We've got a lady coming on that's going to talk about she massive campaigner for Black health. So because with it, I mean, you'll hear the podcast when it comes out, but she's a real ball of energy, passion. She herself had a kidney and respects the person that passed away to pass that on, and it's her way of sharing that and using her life better. Right. With all the work she does, she's an absolute energy, passion, all that sort of stuff. So I can't wait to have her on. I don't know how that one's going to go. So that's coming up. And then we've got the Salford Festival coming up in the next couple of months. So we'll be looking for Salford-based organisations and characters. I'm sure we'll find a few in Salford. So...
But if you are a Salford organisation and a character, they can contact you via your website?
If you're a character and you're doing good stuff in Greater Manchester, contact us via the website or on Twitter is the best way. We're most active on Twitter. So at mancspirit.com, at Manc Spirit. DMs are always open. Give us a shout.
Slide into Damian's DMs, everyone.
Oh, I'm too old for that nonsense, mate.
So I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks for anyone that's starting a podcast is doing it. Like that first step. So the final point of today's Grab the Mic then is any advice for that? What's the first step to take to get podcasting?
As we tell every guest that comes on and every organisation that we work with, we always offer our platform to them. So if anybody wants to, well, as long as it's decent and we're not going to get arrested, right? We're more than happy that if you want to try it, we'll do all the hosting, we'll do all the stuff behind the scenes. Take over the Great Manc Pod for 3 or 4 episodes. Try it out. Go on Vic's courses because she's fantastic and she's will help anybody as we're, and it was an honour that you were our first guest. They couldn't have been anybody else.
Thank you.
We'll have to get you on it. We'll have to do like an anniversary special at some point, Vic.
I think that's next year, isn't it? It's going to be like 3 years next year.
But the network's there to use. Mm-hmm. There's so many great people. But if you want to get into podcasting, give it a go. It's as simple as that. You don't need to buy the kit. You don't need to do the stuff. We'll bring it. Or I'm sure Vic could do the same, But by all means, get in touch, give it a go. Don't be scared. You've got stories to tell, and it's really, really massively important, especially with the cost of living, the economic crisis. I want community groups is to take over the narrative for your local area. You know what's needed. You know what your people. Don't let this bland nonsense take over where they think that one size fits all. What works for Bolton works for Wigan. Nonsense. I nearly said something then. I'm behaving myself today, I promise, Vic. But take over the narrative. Mm-hmm. Take over the narrative. Economic regeneration in your area through social enterprise. Set up a social enterprise. Get in touch with me and Vic. We'll point you in the right direction. I'll do some consultancy work if anybody wants me to come and do it. Rates are pretty good. But
you're peddling your wares now, Damian.
Mate, you guys, we're on LinkedIn. That's what you got to do on LinkedIn, isn't it? I'm going to change my bio and put guru and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, please do. Put charity hashtag charity guru. Damian, it's been a pleasure as ever. Big thank you for joining me on the 4th Grab the Mic Live. And thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having us.
I'm sure we've learnt loads.
It's been great being interviewed rather than being the interviewee.
I know, and you've made your streaming debut as well. Oh,
mate. I don't know if that's... Can I put that on my LinkedIn bio as well?
It's all for the CV, babes. It's all for the CV.
Am I a YouTuber now?
Well, you will be. So what a great link that was. So in a couple of weeks' time, I'll be putting this on YouTube, as well as the one we did last week with Armchair Adventures. And there's 2 on there already. You can watch at your own pleasure and leisure. Next time. So try and do 2 a month of these. So the next one is going to be That Inspire Feeling. Sally Bonney from the fabulous Inspire Oldham CIC. It's going to chat to me about how she provided training for her group of amazing women to create their podcast, That Inspire Feeling. And that's going to be Tuesday, the 8th of November. And it's the same time, same place as where you are now. So if you've enjoyed watching this, do me one favour. Please share it with someone you think will take something from it, will love it, and we'll share it with someone else. And from me and Damian, we will see you. Well, I will see you on the 8th, and Damian will see you around, won't you?
I'll be about somewhere, yeah. Thanks, Vic. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening, everyone.